Now, the top story, Brenda, is the big announcement about college sports here in the Northwest because the Pac-12 conference is postponing all sports, and that includes football, that includes basketball, all sports until at least the start of the new year on January 1st.
So that's impacting players and coaches, obviously, but also the local economies of a lot of these college towns. We're going to get to that in a moment, but let's start with yesterday's vote. The Pac-12 presidents and chancellors came to a unanimous decision to postpone. Many said they were concerned about players having access to COVID testing and traveling to different places, especially flying commercially. Pac-12 Commissioner Larry Scott said college sports can't operate in a bubble like professional sports can. Here's what the presidents of U of O and OSU had to say.
We are science-based, right? We're academics. We are going to be looking at facts, not just opinions, and that's something that we're deeply committed to.
We've got some areas in our conference that are some of the hottest spots in the United States, such as Southern California, Los Angeles, and Phoenix, and it just doesn't make sense to be bringing back students into those hot spots.
So that was Oregon State President F. King Alexander. He was talking with the Today Show. You can hear more from him later this morning. But let's talk about the student athletes right now who are impacted by this decision. Pac-12 Commissioner Larry Scott says their scholarships are guaranteed, so that's very important. And he's also strongly encouraging the NCAA to extend players' eligibility for an additional year. Again, that is not an individual school's decision. Ultimately, that's up to the NCAA.
So as we just mentioned, this is going to have a huge impact on the economies of college towns. Think about Eugene and Corvallis. Many businesses rely on those games to bring all the people to restaurants and hotels. So we talked to the owner of Size New York Pizza in Eugene. He says game days double their normal business, so they will be hurting.
Every year during, football, we have alumni that come back into town, and, often that includes trips to kind of their favorite places. So I get a lot of people, that went to school here 30, even 40 years ago that come in to get pizza. So it's going to be a little disappointing to get to, miss that.
Even Eugene's local Boy Scouts are going to miss out on a chance to make money. They typically bring in $250,000 every football season by renting out their parking lot. We know these are just some of the economic impacts. We're going to be checking in with other businesses later today to see how they're handling the news. Now to the big news in the presidential race. Joe Biden, the presumptive Democratic nominee, announced his running mate, and it's his former primary challenger, California Senator Kamala Harris.
So with the presumptive Democratic ticket now set, Brenda, voters have a clear look ahead to the November election. Catherine Cook went out and got some local reaction for us.
In an email to supporters and a tweet to America, Joe Biden announced he's picked Kamala Harris to be his running mate on the presumptive Democratic presidential ticket. In the middle of a pandemic, there was no rally with signs and cheers, but Harris responded via Twitter saying, quote, Joe Biden can unify the American people because he spent his life fighting for us. And as president, he'll build an America that lives up to our ideals. I'm honored to join him as our party's nominee for vice president and do what it takes to make him our commander-in-chief. If elected, Harris would be the nation's first female, Black, and Asian American vice president.
It has been a very difficult road for many African American women in politics.
Dr. Shirley A. Jackson is a professor in the Black Studies Department at Portland State University. She says Biden naming Harris as his VP pick speaks volumes about the need for a different leadership perspective.
And also really, makes clear the complexity of the demographic population in the United States. We're not all one thing.
Harris has been in the Senate since 2016. Before that, she was California's Attorney General and District Attorney in San Francisco. She ran against Biden for the Democratic presidential nomination, but left the race before voting started. In a tweet, Biden called Harris a, quote, fearless fighter for the little guy and one of the country's finest public servants.
As a Black Hispanics woman, I can't be more happy to have that representation.
Ariel Miles Hernandez is a student at PSU and community advocate. While she's thrilled with Harris's candidacy, she's curious about her background as a criminal prosecutor. Harris has faced criticism from some progressives over her record on criminal justice. Though this summer, she helped write Democrats' police reform legislation in the midst of protests over police brutality.
Dismantling these systems of racial bias that she has said in her, campaign, and has provided examples that, she's looking to change that structure.
Come November, Dr. Jackson believes that Harris, like President Obama, will ignite a voting surge.
Because this is a moment in history that many people have never seen and probably will not see for quite some time to come.
Harris and Biden are scheduled to appear together Wednesday in Wilmington, Delaware, Biden's hometown. They'll also hold a virtual fundraiser. Catherine Cook, KGW News.
President Trump started criticizing that pick shortly after the announcement yesterday.
She's a big tax raiser. She's a big slasher of funds for our military, and she's got a lot of difficult things that she's going to have to explain. Plus, she was very, very nasty to one of the reasons that surprised me. She was probably nastier than even Pocahontas to Joe Biden.
President Trump donated to Harris's campaign twice while he was a private citizen, and she was running for California Attorney General.
All right, turning to local politics now. In the race for Portland City Council, a runoff election is being decided right now for the seat left open by the late Nick Fish. And this morning, it is still too close to call. So here's a look at the results. Dan Ryan having a slight lead with 52% of the vote. Loretta Smith follows closely behind with 48% of the vote. We're going to keep following these results closely throughout the day. You can check out the latest vote tallies anytime on KGW.com or our KGW News app.
Let's talk about the Blazers because they were fighting to keep their playoff hopes alive last night in a showdown with the Dallas Mavericks, and Damian Lillard, that man did not disappoint last night. 61 points. That matches a career high that he just set earlier this season. So this is a crazy number. Dame has now scored 112 points in just the past 2 games, and they needed just about all of those 61 points because they only won by 3. 134-131 your final score. Blazers now in 8th place in the West. 1 game left before the playoffs. That game will happen tomorrow. The Grizzlies, Suns, and Spurs, meanwhile, all right behind the Blazers in that playoff race. So here's the deal. The 8th and 9th place teams will square off this coming weekend to determine which team gets that final playoff spot in the Western Conference.
That was a great game. Okay, turning now to soccer and the Portland Timbers. Boy, they had a huge win in the MLS's back tournament. They are bringing home the trophy after beating Orlando City in the championship.
It always helps to score first in soccer, Brenda, and that's what the Timbers did. They snagged the early lead in this match. So let's take you to the highlights. That first goal came in the 27th minute off the head. Way to use your head. Orlando City was able to find the equalizer. They eventually tied things up here at 1 goal apiece, but the Timbers got that final goal, the one that secured the win, the one that secured the championship trophy. 2-1 the final. It was a month-long tournament at that Disney World bubble, and the Timbers didn't lose a single match. They're coming home with that trophy. They're coming home with some prize money. Nice job by your Portland Timbers in Orlando.